Nope,
No.
it's not.
It's your
Hi, everybody. How's it going? Thank you for coming out and supporting independent cinema on a Saturday night in Los Angeles. I love this film, and I know I seem like a random choice, but to moderate a Q&A, but Badge and I did a movie how long ago? Like 10, 11?
Sure.
Let's not talk about how long ago. You know, I often text Badge from various sets around the world complaining, crying, talking about my loneliness and depression, and he will sometimes do the same with me. But I remember I started getting texts from when he was working on this movie in Montana, and they were not the normal kind of texts I get from Badge. They were actually like, I think this movie's really good. I think this movie's really special. This is really, I know, this is like really something, like this is, and so I've been hearing about this film for I'd say like a year before I ever saw it. And I knew it was really important to Badge, and it was really meaningful. And I thought maybe it's just a very sentimental connection he has to this film. And then I got to see this film a few weeks ago, and I realized, no, he is not deluded. This is a very special film. And I am so glad that the world gets to see everything that Badge can do, which I feel like this film does so beautifully. And I'm really making him uncomfortable, and this is truly a power I never knew I could possess, which is to make you want to die in front of a group of people. But,
by the way, she told me today, she goes, my whole goal for this tonight is to make you cry.
yeah. So I love this film, and I now know why you love this film so much after having seen it. And I'm so impressed by your performance. You're incredible in this movie. And your writing and direction and everything. And I thought, you know, the title that struck me anew when I watched it for the second time, because on the face of it, it's Mickey and the Bear, it's her and her father. But then I realized, like, actually animals are a big part of this film throughout, and Mickey has a relationship to animals. And I wondered if that was something that you guys wanted to talk about at all.
Well, thank you also. I think the setting in Montana is where the animal symbolism sort of came from, both in the title and then in Mickey's job at the taxidermy, in the bear hunt, even in Watkins' office with the turtle, the lizard in their house in the cage. It was like a combination of wanting to just embrace a culture that really includes a lot of animals and also has like a pretty extensive hunting culture, but then also depicting these animals that are like frozen in time, that are dead and taxidermied, and also these animals in cages and in tanks to depict this theme in the movie of being trapped.
I also wondered, maybe for you, if it's for a character that's it has to sort of like keep this whole life secret at home with her dad, if the relationship with working with these taxidermied animals that can't talk back, that you don't have to worry about what they're going to ask you any uncomfortable questions. How did you feel about the character's job in the movie?
I never thought of it like that. The animals weren't going to be asking me questions, but that's a good way to. That's a good connection you made. I think that the taxidermy is a really important part of Mickey's life, and I think that it takes a very unique person to work in a taxidermy, and I think that, like you said, she's such an isolated person, and because her life at home can be so dark that it's just, you see her putting her earplugs in and just doing this routine job, which is kind of the way that she behaves when she's home with Hank as well. It's just kind of a routine. I thought of Mickey kind of as a packed mule, just going through the motions of life, rather than all the other beautiful things. She kind of just took her life as a chore.
Yeah, it was also interesting too, like the fantasy of the life in California too also has a lot of animals in it, like the Morro Bay with the, jellyfish. Yeah. Did you guys talk about the collage that she works on, or is that something that you would just find images in the moment that struck you, or were all of those planned?
planned. I really, anyone who makes movies in the room knows, like, it's so frustrating to do that kind of visual broadcasting sort of thing where you're like saying what's happening just through showing old pictures. But with Mickey's mother, there's so little reference to her. And she also has so little expression of her inner life that in this kind of hidden collage thing tucked away, that's the only place that she can really express herself. So for me, it was like, even though it was kind of telegraphing of things, I did feel like it was a deeper expression because she doesn't have any place where she can really express herself. As you can see in the birthday diner scene, she tries to talk about her mother and she gets completely shut down. So where can she really express herself but in her room?
Yeah, I think this was very subtle telegraphing, I have to say.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay, Badge, time to make you more uncomfortable. So you play a lot of tough guys, you play a lot of cops, but you're secretly very sweet and mushy. And I thought that this film was really interesting because the character almost can't bring himself to say that he loves his daughter when he's sober. It's only when he gets fucked up that he can say, "You're not gonna leave me, are you?" But when he's sober, it's like, "I don't care if you stay or if you go because you're gonna leave me eventually." Can you talk about being a secret softie?
Wow, this is turning on you really quickly, Badge.
Yeah, I know, we should go straight into it.
I can talk about
Okay.
you being a softie.
No, I know.
No, make him. No, the whole point is to make him.
I see what you're doing here. I'm gonna say this, your previous question talking about the collage.
Nope.
No.
All right.
I'm gonna
You're
wrap it
the
back
bra-
to you.
all
Yeah,
right.
I swear to God, I'm gonna do this right. We're in this trailer a lot, and it's a very confined space, hence the animals and being trapped. There was my room, there was her room, there was the kitchen and living room. And I spent a lot of time in my room. And then sometimes we would use Cammy's room as our green room. That's the only place we could put a heater. And we'd run in there in between setups and we'd try to warm up, and that's where I saw the collage for the first time. And that's where I saw her family photos for the first time. And her mother, is the photos that we used for Vanessa. And there was this palpable realization of how much I've been ignoring my daughter. And it drives into this thing, like what is that? What is that when you're sober and you're present, you can't connect? And it takes you getting fucked up and getting needy to kind of reach out, And I'm gonna stop now before I get too much.
No.
I think the tears were just coming. You should
They
be
were
there.
just there.
It is interesting though, because it's so, I think anyone who's been in a dynamic like this, which I hope was no one, but I feel like it's probably quite a few people in the room, it is really meaningful when that person kind of, to even hear you say that in your fictional character, so healing in a way, because it's like, yes, you as kind of the more dependent one in the codependent dynamic, you feel sort of invisible. And I think as women, a lot of times in dynamics at work or personal life or families, we can feel quite invisible and silenced. And so to hear your story of taking recognition of her expression, again, in this fictional world that we created, I think is so powerful. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a great portrayal of a codependent relationship, and it was so great to watch in your performances, going from that I've had to take on wife, mother, adult in this dynamic to moments of truly feeling out of your depth. Can you talk about emotionally in those scenes? Would you be surprised sometimes the way they played out? Was it how you thought when you read the script, or were there moments that took you by surprise?
When you read a script and you're an actor, you have this imagination and these ideas of what the trailer looks like and what that scene is going to look like, and you have these all premeditated notions, and then you get to set and it literally all goes away. And the trailer's not what you thought it looked like, and the place isn't what you thought it looked like. You're not wearing the outfit you thought you'd look like, and it's great because those things aren't important. The importance is the connection between the two people doing the scene or the three people doing the scene. And there were a lot of moments that took me by surprise. This whole film took me by surprise, to be honest. It was a really big challenge for Badge and I. We were absolutely terrified. He's been doing this forever, and he was still scared. And I just started, and I was really scared. And yeah, that's just the beauty of filmmaking, is that you're terrified at every moment, and then you have to do it, and then it's over. And you just hope that in that moment you can achieve the point of what the scene is trying to say.
I think the beautiful thing about Cammy is that she's always exploring, and there would be moments where she'd turn to me on set and she'd be like, "This is not what I imagined at all." But then she would dive back in the next take and come at it from a completely different direction. She's incredibly present, she listens, and she can adjust. And so I started having a lot of fun playing with her. Like okay, where can I come from that's going to affect her? And let's see what she does. And I think that's the beautiful thing about film, is what you're doing is you're just trying to create a moment that's actually real. That's actually just, it has that spark. It's not planned. It's not repeating the same beats over and over and over again. And then Annie films it and she takes it back and edits it together, and then we give it away to you guys. You know, I think it's a really special process. And this was just one of those films that it just, from every department in our crew, it just had that electric feel of, we're doing it for the first time, every take, every day.
Had you worked with a lot of people in the crew before? Was that a DP you'd worked with before, or production designer?
I had commented from totally, I had done 2 shorts before this, and both were one location, interior. So I didn't know how to work with background, I didn't know how to work with 30 locations and so much natural light and all this stuff, and I didn't know any of the crew. But we connected, it's a town of 6,000 people, and as much as I was in touch with the community, it's also what do you have but the crew to kind of connect with? So every single department head worked way longer hours than they should have. Katie Fleming, the production designer, worked tirelessly on the trailer.
She did a beautiful job.
I agree, she's incredible. And we shot this so many times, and these two came in a week before or so to just rehearse every single scene. And so it was one of these things where I think I gave everything over to this movie, and I think sometimes when you see a director doing that, but also I try to empower everybody, I think everybody then gave their full selves to the movie too. So even though I didn't know anybody beforehand, it sort of didn't matter in a way.
We had a really young crew. I mean, a lot of the people on our crew had just graduated college and were going into this as their first feature film, which I think is a really cool thing, and I think it's an important story to tell throughout this press tour and all the things we've been doing, because I think it gives other indie filmmakers and producers and writers hope, because look what we were able to accomplish with a bunch of newcomers and a bunch of young kids mixed with obviously very experienced people. And then one really old male lead.
Well, also it sounds like you guys were capturing the thing that you're always hoping for, where everyone is actually excited about what they're doing, and you haven't hit the level of jaded burnout where people are like, I gotta do it for what amount of money, but rather here we are, this is what we're trying to do, we're in this beautiful place, I loved all of your wide exterior shots. They were just so gorgeous. How do you even pick when you're in a place that gorgeous what you want to shoot?
I guess we shot a lot of those. I think every single exterior kind of interstitial shot is used in the movie pretty much. I think that was a big draw in terms of we had half of our crew was local Montana, but the rest came in, and I think it was a huge draw to be in this beautiful place. But yeah, no, I think getting to use natural light in the scenery and kind of craft your own William Eggleston portrait, but in 2019 is what more could you ask for?
The bar into the karaoke, now that you say that, does remind me of that Eggleston shot of the ceiling in the bar with the neon lights. That's such a beautiful, that's like such a beautifully lit and shot sequence in the bar, the birthday. It also struck me watching it again that you open the film almost with Cammy looking straight into the lens. And was that a deliberate choice, or was that like a happy accident on the day?
I don't know. What did you think?
I didn't even realize that till she said it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I realized she's looking in. It's from the perspective of the skylight, but I guess I never realized she looks
Subconsciously realized.
subconsciously. I didn't. That was, I guess, a mistake.
It felt to me. It didn't feel like a mistake to me. It felt like this is a film that is the story of this girl, and we're being introduced to her in this opening shot, and she's almost introducing herself to the audience by looking that close to the lens.
I think there might have been something premeditated in that, because at the end, when we were doing the running, we decided we wanted it to be looking right into lens. And so at the beginning, maybe we knew that some way, but I don't remember. I don't think it was that.
It's deliberate. It was a choice.
It was so
It's
deliberate.
a storytelling
It's just
device.
it's breaking the fourth wall.
I liked it. I was like, that's a bold way to open a movie. I don't own it from now on. This is very
It
deliberate.
was a choice.
All right, how was it singing, Badge? How did it feel to do the karaoke?
That's such a setup question. She knows that that's one of the hardest things for me to do. There's a lot of vulnerable moments in this film, I think.
Could you give us a little snippet?
I don't think I can remember the song.
Oh.
I was so nervous about that. I kept coming to Annie. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to sing in front of this crew. And but yeah, we had fun. And I remember Cammy was out in the exterior of this bar, which is a real bar in Montana, and people were there having drinks. And so she was hanging out there, and then we're getting ready, and she came in. And I'll never forget the look on your face. I'll never forget the look on your face when you came in on that first take. You're just like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, he was a little rusty.
Meanwhile, I was
What
in
wasn't
full tears that entire scene for some
Yeah.
reason. That scene got me so much.
That was the only point you cried publicly.
Yeah, very publicly. I mean, it was very moving. Whatever you got through it very well. I thought,
Thank you.
I think.
Album's dropping later this year.
Yeah, exactly. Look out, the shameless plug.
It's really funny, like, what is totally unintimidating to do on screen and what is terrifying. I would be terrified to sing. I'm a terrible singer.
Me too.
I feel like
You're not
you were.
that bad.
I feel like you were scared too, Cammy. But then you have a beautiful voice.
I know. I barely had to sing. I made it a cry whisper sing. I didn't have to really sing like Badge did.
That's a great technique. Also, the talk singing. Just say it with a lot of emotion. It's basically the Rex Harrison. Someone has seen My Fair Lady. It's also interesting because it's a film about a girl, but she's not really surrounded by a lot of women in her life. There's basically only one other female presence. But I feel from you that you don't want this to be a character defined by the men, or like in another filmmaker's hands, maybe it would be about choosing between the two boyfriends and picking the one that was right. Can you talk about having a character have love interests and be surrounded by men, but not have her story be defined by them?
Well, I think what I'm interested in as a storyteller is looking at people who exist in the patriarchal system and are othered by that system. And so Mickey is kind of caught between these three reflections, which are her father, her boyfriend, and then this other man who kind of represents the potential for her. And ultimately, I think in her decision to leave home, she's picking herself and sort of picking that she's not going to be defined, not by a relationship, a romantic one, or not by her father specifically. I don't know, I think, unfortunately, we do live in this overwhelmingly patriarchal world. That is what we live in, and I love aspirational female friendship stories and mother-daughter stories that don't deal with that. But I think for me, I've been so frustrated my entire life by being overlooked and being taken as not a serious human being and whatnot. So I'm very interested in looking at young women who have a lot of frustration and anger and watching that simmer and simmer and simmer and ultimately explode into some act of defiance against that system, which is, I think, what the ending shot of this film is.
Well, it's also interesting too because it feels like her anger is almost too dangerous at the beginning. So like it almost feels like the journey of the film is allowing herself to get angry.
Yeah, because women are taught not to get angry and not to like ever say anything off color or anything too defiant or ever to upset the male. And I think the film starts in that simmering place where she can't access the anger, and then that one scene where she confronts him about the money and she confronts him about everything, it all kind of comes to a head.
Cammy, what was your favorite day on set?
Well, there was a day that we got ribs delivered to set. That was a great day.
Talk about the importance of snacks to filmmaking.
It's underlooked, but it's highly important.
I agree.
No, we were actually shooting the scene where Jake, I don't know who Jake is, it's James and Hank combined, where Hank, also known as James Batchdale, was, when he fell off the cliff, we actually shot on the Blackfoot River that day, which is this beautiful river in Montana, and we took a dinghy to work. So at like 6 a.m. we have all these people loading cameras and all the gear and all the food for the day on this little floaty raft to cruise us down for 30 minutes to our location. And then happened to be the day that our lunch break we got ribs. So
It's close to Missoula. It's called the Notorious PIG. If you
wow,
ever
tag your sponsor, huh?
Yeah, exactly. If you ever go to Missoula, it's so. You should tell the story of Cammy getting the ribs.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite days also, because Calvin and I were in this river and over and over and over again, and it is cold. It is cold, man. And we were in and we were going, and we said, okay, man, we're staying this. And the shots over here, and Cammy's doing off camera, and we come out and we're just freezing, and we turn and we look at Cammy. Cammy's off camera, just. Barbecue sauce all down the front of her shirt.
My scene was done for the day, so not my problem.
And Calvin and I just kind of turned to each other in the middle of the scene, and we both had to look away from camera.
That's not a great co-star behavior.
Pure joy.
It was great.
It was beautiful.
It was great.
I think that is all the time that we have. Yeah. But thank you all so much for coming out, and I think it's really apt to leave on this rib story. It feels like it really captures something essential about the film. But do us a favor and go home and tell 10 people that you saw this movie, and tell them to come and see it in a theater and not to wait until they can buy it digitally, because I think it's really important to continue to see independent film in theater. Wasn't this so nice? Yes. So please do that, and thank you all for having me, and I really think this film is special, and everyone have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you.